and today we're going to talk about bad kitty behavior, an old problem with some new insights. Welcome everybody, thank you for joining me here today. If you really want to help this program, please share the video with your friends. Hit the share button below, you'll get a link or something that will allow you to post it on your Facebook or social media. Really appreciate your support. Thank you. For years we see patients coming in that are having the medical term of inappropriate elimination, peeing or pooping where they're not supposed to. Where they're supposed to is the nice litter box that everyone likes, and they sometimes will have a different idea. The corner, the sofa, the middle of the bed, or whatever. And classically, the training that I've received gives us the approach of, what shall we say, the expression I tend to is trying to tell us something. He wants something. Different this, different that. So we change litters, we do this, we have some drugs that we use, and in the majority of cases we're effective. In many cases we're not. So a researcher in, I believe, South America, let me look at my notes here. I want to give credit where credit is due. At the Federal University in Brazil, I'm going to butcher this name. My Brazilian Portuguese is not existent, but Aline Cristina Santania, professor of zoology at the school, undertook a study to look at separation anxiety in cats. Now, we all talk about separation anxiety in dogs. Separation anxiety in dogs is well documented. There are actually now 2 pharmacological agents that are approved by the FDA, not the manufacturer, but the FDA's PAPA waiver on the drug for treating canine separation anxiety. A lot of reasons for canine separation anxiety is, but the whole community has looked at dogs as having a monopoly on canine separation anxiety, and kitties just kind of were their own problem, so to speak. Well, this doctor decided to apply canine separation anxiety parameters in this study, and she looked at 130 households and 233 kitty cats. 133 households with 233 kitty cats divided between them. And she determined, based upon behaviors such as whether they exhibited distressed mental states, whether they had soiling or destructive behaviors, whether or not they had typical canine destructive behaviors. And she looked at that in that group of those kitty cats, and 13%, 30 some odd kitty cats, had met the criteria for canine separation anxiety, now feline separation anxiety. So she found some very interesting things in those 30 kitty cats. Not epidemiologically, sociologically, the parameters that made up those families. She looked at their ages. She looked at the sexes of the family members. She looked at the number of people in the household, and she looked at the number of other cats in the household. And what was overrepresented in these 30 kitties, pretty much across the board, was that an age group of 18 to 35 years had a higher incidence of the separation anxiety criteria than those that didn't. I'm afraid to report this because you're going to think I'm sexist or something else, but this is her report, and it's very, very interesting because a lot more, I'm sure, is going to come out in more research on this, because she found that households that own cats by a single female had less problems than a household that didn't have a female owner, or had two or more female owners. Maybe that's like people that like wow, got that mixed up. Excuse me. Where's the coffee? Kind of like the statistic, 90% of the people that get in the automobile accidents like pickles. Well, and maybe you can criticize the study as only 130 households, but it certainly was statistically clear that no girls in the house, or two or more girls in the house, increase the risk of statistically having this separation anxiety. We're talking about soiling behaviors, we're talking about eliminations of both urine and stool, destructive behaviors, and the like. So, and there was one other factor, if I can recall. Oh, and one kitty in the house, as opposed to multiple kitties in the house, had problems. So multiple cat households had more problems than not. And that would have been kind of a given for me based upon years of experience with problems of that nature. So I started thinking about that, and I have a lot of patients that, what's the take home from, got any guesses on why households that have 18 to 35-year-old owners have more problems with their kitties with separation anxieties or not? I haven't turned the chat on here, so I don't know if anybody's sent any messages or not. Think about that. We'll maybe talk about that during the discussion. Well, that's not a bad thing to talk about now. Anybody on the line, somebody can unmute themselves and start talking. I'm going to actually unmute the whole line, and we can, oops, now I'm on full screen. I can't see anything. I think, let's see, I'm looking at me so I can do this. Everybody looks like they're muted. I'm going to unmute everybody, so if there's a bunch of background noise, I'll have to clear things out. So if anybody has any thoughts, you can blurt them out and we can chat. Or if no one has any thoughts and you want to keep your thoughts to yourself, we'll go on to the next slide. Then you might be stuck with my opinion. Households that are kitties that are owned, and dogs for that matter, but the 18 to 35 group are really active people. They're younger. They're going to be more like, that's a dog show expression, like show and go, but they've got their dogs and their cats, they've got their lives, they're happy with the kitty when it comes home, but it's come home, feed it, go out with some friends, come home, leave in the morning, go to work, leave in the morning and run errands to come in and the like. And when the cat and the dog are more, I don't want to be critical, I don't mean this to be critical, but they're kind of like a convenience to their lifestyle and not a whole integral part of their life. And I think a lot of these cats and dogs are like people. they want more. They don't want to be home alone. I think I was taught erroneously that cats like to be home alone. They're just fine. Um, I always thought a second kitty in the house made a whole bunch of sense. And for ages, before we had a flock of Bernese Mountain Dogs floating around, we'd always have two, sometimes three cats in the house. And I thought they kept themselves pretty comfortable and the like. And they were um, um, home alone while Diane and I were out doing our stuff during the day. At night, they got a lot of attention, but from 7 to 7 or whatever, wasn't a lot of attention. So what, did I have problems with those kitties? For decades, never. And then one day, ages ago, well, I had 3 kitties at the time. I had an orange tabby. His name was Fip. I had a Himalayan little girl named Fia. And I had an Abyssinian named Phil. The orange tabby came from a rescue type situation when I was first in practice. I took all the emergency calls. I was the new kid on the block of the practice, and traveling family. Long story short, came in. The cat had lower urinary tract infection and XYZ, and they were on the road, kind of like the 18 to 35-year-olds I was talking for. Cat wasn't a big thing in her life. Apparently, she worked at the vet hospital, had the history of him being the blood donor there. They wanted to, I hate to say this, dump the cat and put it to sleep. And I said, it was kind of one of those miracle, love at first sight things. As soon as they put the cat down on the table, I like this cat. So I said, well, why don't you just leave it with me and I'll fix it. You go on to Seattle, where you want. So that's what happened. So he ended up needing a perineal urethrostomy and some surgery and the like. And that was kind of like a 2-3 week process of healing. And then I just, at the end of patients, I'd sit down in the office, do something, let him out and start playing with him and the like. And one day I heard this strange noise and he just jumped on the toilet and peed. So he was actually house trained to the peeing on the toilet automatically by his previous whatever. And that lasted all until I got the next cat. And then when I got the litter box, he thought the litter box was better. Interesting observation. I think cats like litter boxes better than toilets. You can think about that next time you want to train your cat to the toilet. Anyway, so how did I get on that? Wow, that was a rabbit trail, wasn't it? My point is, so my father used to come from Cincinnati and visit me for a couple months at a time. And each year he'd stay a little bit longer, and a little bit longer, and a little bit longer. Great. Glad to see Dad. So one year he went back, and he'd been there for like 3-4 months. And the next thing I know, I come home to a pile of poop in the middle of the living room floor. And it didn't take long to figure out that it was Phil. And I call up Dad and say, hey, because, Dad was here and active, and I'm working 7 to 7. He's got to amuse himself. Well, he's pretty good at amusing himself. He goes out and walks and bird watches, but and he's very active in the senior center, so we'd be active in the senior centers around here and whatsoever. So I got, I called up and said, hey, how much time were you spending with the cats? He said, well, I did this and this and that. I said, which cat likes you the best? He said, oh, that little orange-red thing. And I said, yeah, I think he misses you. The long story short, I tried to do a number of things like 700 litter boxes and all the standard stuff. And he just pooped right in the middle of the floor, same spot every time. And I said, Dad, I think this kitty cat wants you. And so I sent him back in Cincinnati, and both of them lived happily ever after for ages. So I think they want more than what we think they want sometimes. Has that been your experiences with your cats? I have one comment from possibly the 18 to 35-year-old group is more active outside the house, and which allows the cat more opportunity to react. I think that's probably correct. Yeah, I think that I think the cat gets bored. I think that's the biggest problem. We think the cats sleep all day, and I've been telling people that cover story for ages. They sleep all day. Well, they sleep all day because I don't know any better. I think getting um, one of the solutions, if you have a kitty for this new proposed disorder of feline separation anxiety, is to give them something to do. Well, what can you give your kitty to do? Well, one thing that you could give the kitty to do was to, I'm going to back up for a second. For ages, the main solution to obesity, and obesity is rampant in our kitties. It's rampant in the dogs as well, and in ourselves, I guess, is to meal feed them. Put it down, let them eat. Don't let them nosh all day long. Don't let them eat continuously. Meal feed them. And that works generally for obesity control. But the problem with obesity control is that if we look at this separation anxiety model, the cat can only eat twice a day when you're there. It gives him nothing to do while you're gone, or even less to do while you're gone than when he used to have the food bowl that he could eat with. If you look at a natural model, how often does an outdoor cat, we're not talking about lions and tigers and bears, we talked about tigers a long time ago, but we're not talking about exotic cats, we're talking about just wild feral cats that are foraging for food. How often do they eat? Well, they eat little bitty things. They're going to eat a cricket here, a mouse here, whatsoever. They could eat 4, 5, 8, 12 times a day. And how did they get that meal? Well, I was going to say something silly like they earned it. Well, they did earn it. They worked for it, but they worked their brain for it. They were hunting. They were stalking. They were doing X. They were doing Y or doing Z. I'm thinking that a good substitute is to put them on a scavenger hunt. And for dogs and now for a few cats, assuming you can find some toys they like, you can take toys and the like and scatter them around the house and give them something to do while you're gone. What happens if you took a toy or they make some of these little interactive things where you can put treats in and they fall out? What happens if you got a handful of those and put the entire meal in that and scattered them around the house in various places, under the sofa, behind the desk, behind XYZ, put it in a cardboard box and have them work for it to find their lunch? I've got a suspicion that could really solve some boredom problems and give them something to do. The other thing that really convinced me that they don't sleep continuously 24/7, 365 while I'm gone is that if you put some scattered toys out and you take a picture of where they were at, generally they're moved and they actually play with the toys while you're gone. You can take here's the best toy in the world, is it's a rolled up piece of paper. If you can't find any toys from the last episode, just take some computer paper, roll up 4 or 5 balls, throw them across the floor, take a picture of it before you go, and see if they're in the same spot when you come back. If they're in a different spot, chances are you just may have found a way to keep Kitty from becoming less bored. You can do the same thing with dogs. For separation anxiety and the like, we used to hide various toys and the like around the house, various treats around the house, get their nose working. I think cats are more in the stalking than the scenting type thing. But that's a kind of food for thought. So that's new information coming out of what was, I'll come back with her name in a second if I can remember it. But I really think that's a fantastic insight on things, and it's going to give us a lot of information, and look forward to the next studies as they keep developing this. Because I think if we can start using more behavioral type things and less pharmaceutical type things, or at least an adjunct to the pharmaceutical type things, I think we're going to get huge improvement in our success rate. Until next time, check out these videos on pet care. Hit the subscribe and the bell below so you'll be notified each and every time I post a new video. But most importantly, please share this video with your friends. You can use the share link below, click on it, email it to them. I really appreciate your support. Thanks. I can't wait until I see you in the next video.